we have people's creativity. You've given them permission to, and the time, and to some extent the resources to try and put something together. What's the process of building something effective in such a short period of time?
Yeah, so building something in a short period of time, not easy lah. But basically, I can say that there are many sleepless nights that were had over time. So first I know I said this earlier, but I'm gonna emphasize it. I think deprioritization is particularly important. I think a lot of organizations focus often on priorities, and the issue with that is you end up having with a lot of priorities. And with a lot of priorities, it's actually quite difficult to deliver. So I think there needs to be real clarity in terms of prioritization, and the way you get there is by deprioritizing a lot of stuff. Okay, and you have to be bold in your deprioritization. That's the only way you can do well and build something quickly. Right. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is it has to be an iterative process. I think sometimes we feel like we don't want to show the product, and it can be any product, right? It can be a tech product, it can be work product. We want to refine it, and we want to have the best version of it, and they want to say, "Ta-da! Here it is!" Like, don't you think it's great? But the reality is, it's hard to even define sometimes what people want, and it's kind of this like, "Oh, I'll know it when I see it." But you need to show people stuff, and they need to play around with it to say, "Actually, this is not solving the problem that I thought I wanted to solve, or this is not solving in the way that works for me." So you need to just build and iterate quite quickly. And so you need to be able to withstand, and maybe as engineers, people are more used to the idea that, 80-90% of the code that you write at some point will be thrown away. But for a lot of us who are not engineers, I think to get used to that is a new way of working and a new way of thinking, right? The designs, the stuff that you do, you're going to chuck a lot of it. And so then once you realize that this is the case, once you accept that this is the way, then you will realize, okay, then I better start showing work earlier, right? Because I'm going to throw away, I better throw away earlier and restart. And then I work on it some more, and then find out that it's abortive work, right? So I think work iteratively is the key, and a lot of the demos and the mock-ups were actually quite basic, quite simple. It's not the kind of sophisticated products you would see on like postman.gov.sg or homer.gov.sg. Wow, looks so nice now. But the first iterations and all were just like functional. Like, does this work? You see two dots, this is the distance. Does this distance make sense? Should somebody be accepted as near enough or far enough? Stuff like that. So as long as it's functional, that's good enough, and you want to see that it works and that it's doing the job. So I think that's the second point. Do it iteratively, and then you focus on polishing the product at a much later stage. And then I think there needs to be a big focus on the user itself. So and I think a lot of people say this, but in practice it's not easy to do, because the user themselves, you need to go back to them, right? So you need to figure out, first of all, how to manage their expectations, their timelines, how to work with them in a way that makes sense. And sometimes you might have a view as somebody who's building the product, and again, it can be tech or non-tech product, of what it should look like. But ultimately, if the user, for example, is the Ministry of Health, and they have certain things that they're looking out for, and they have a certain protocol that they follow, if you present something that doesn't fit, regardless of how great you think it is and how much you think you solve the problems, and they don't use it, it goes to waste. So it's really about asking the right questions, getting to the bottom of it, and not just asking, but really observing how people are using it to improve then the user experience, the design of it, the interface of it in a way that is intuitive and integrates quite well into the process. So that is also an iterative process itself. Usually you have a discussion up front, but in each iteration of the product and the prototype, you want to have an observation and a discussion with people who are really, really using it to make sure that it works. And then that allows you then to quite quickly iterate and get something off the ground quite quickly.
Right. So does that mean success looks more like creating a product that is just good enough for it to be useful for someone, especially during a time like this where speed is of the essence? So is it just the case of let's try to build something as simple as possible and as useful as possible, without worrying too much about the bells and whistles?
So I think you have to start there. Yes. So I think that is the fastest and best route to your largest success of a product that is recognizable and easy to use for everyone. Right? Because ultimately you do need to get there, because if people can't use citizens can't use your product, then then also cannot lah. Right? But the way to get there in the fastest and more robust way is what you described, is first getting what is commonly called a minimal viable product, MVP, and then after that you start incrementally increasing and tweaking from there, and then you will get much more quickly to something that is useful both for the agency and for citizens.